Jack didn't know the last time he saw sunlight. All he knew were these 4 grey walls and a heavy steel door. Then there was the hole in the floor where he had the fun of pissing and shitting. Can't forget about that little luxury. He could still remember the time when he was a newly minted fabricator, fresh out of his apprenticeship with his master. His poor master. His master was a human, much like himself, Master Fabricator Quincy. He was a genius, and one of the kindest people one could hope to meet. Jack was just a street kid when Quincy found him and took him under his wing. Jack had been some dumb punk kid with more balls than brains. He'd been stabbed and blacked out in an alley propped against a wall. When he woke up in Quincy's workshop, lying in a cot with a hearty bowl of soup and a healing potion sitting nearby, it shocked him. Jack couldn't help but chuckle at the memory of his surprise. Of course, that initial feeling was immediately dwarfed by the awe that followed, once he'd got a good look at the wonders that surrounded him. Machines of brass, bronze, steel, iron, and copper. Tools he could never have imagined, both beautiful and scary. Pistons, pumps, and pipes hummed and glowed with the hiss of escaping steam. Then there were the magic items, neatly organized and set on pegs or stored in cases, yet open for anyone to see. Jack could still remember how he could feel the magic energies radiating off them. Then there was his master, the closest thing Jack had to a father. He was past middle-aged, with deep brown skin and a bald head. His face wore smile lines and a short, snow-white beard, always dressed in a heavy leather craftsman apron and a belt with all manner of tools and devices attached to it. Quincy was old, but he didn't carry himself like it. With a jovial smile and a firm pat on the shoulder that made Jack's entire body move. Even now, Jack still couldn't believe how strong the old man had been. He hated it at first. What snot-nosed teen liked having their bones rattled like that? He left that day confused but grateful. Quincy, for his part, asked no questions and gave no disapproval, only wished him good travels, offered friendly advice, and said a hot meal would be waiting if he wanted it. Before Jack knew it, he had a room of his own. Not long after that, he was helping Quincy with simple tasks, washing, putting tools away. Despite the work being hard and the tools heavy, it was honestly some of Jack's fondest memories. Quincy even paid him for his help, despite already taking him under his wing. When Jack tried to refuse, his master only laughed and told him something. Not as the kid who didn't follow his ass from his elbow, but as an equal, a friend, and maybe even a wayward nephew.
Anyone that does honest work should get fair honest pay. No one cheats me for my work, and I'm not going to cheat you for yours.
His master said it with an ever-jovial smile and a firm pat on the back that made Jack stumble. On that day, Jack swore to himself he would pay his master back. Not just for saving him, his master gave him something far more precious. Hope. A future. Since that day, Jack became obsessed with learning as much as possible. To not only become a fabricator, but to be the best. To be just like his master before him. To be a good and honest man. To make tools and machines that improve people's lives. To get that look of surprise from his master when he learned a new skill faster than expected. It took years. Some nights were hard. When he couldn't master something as fast as he wanted, Quincy was always there, offering wisdom that helped him through those hurdles. Then Jack made it. He not only passed the Fabricator Guild exam, he scored amongst the highest ever recorded. Soon after, Jack had his own workshop. For 3 years he worked, mostly repairing or making tools. He only made a few magic items, but his customers always gave glowing recommendations. The pride he saw on Quincy's face was all the validation Jack needed. Even as he rose through the guild ranks, even when he built a shop nearly equal to Quincy's, he never stopped calling him master, even when they met for drinks. Jack reminisced those happy memories while sitting in his cell. At least until the latch at the bottom of the thick iron door opened for a tray of food to come in.
Here's your food, human.
Jack forced himself to pick up the tray and looked at the hunk of stale bread along with a tankard of water. He sighed. He really missed the taste of steak. Hell, he'd strangle someone just for some boiled vegetables at this point, instead of this hunk of sawdust his jailers called bread.
Hey, Key Shaker, where's the butter? This shit needs some butter, or at least some spit. Oh my god, it's disgusting.
Jack called out, wanting to irritate the guard. It was his only form of entertainment.
Enjoy it, human. Your days are numbered unless you tell us what we want.
Sorry, what was it you want again? It's so hard to remember. You know, with all the blows to my head and all that?
At this, the guard slammed a mailed fist against the door, using mana to enhance their strength, judging from how hard the heavy iron slab rattled.
The chaos your dead master made! The one we know you helped make! You will tell us what the artificial dungeon call is, you worm!
Oh, how Jack wished he could see the elf's frustration. Jack knew full well what it was they wanted, and he was not going to give it to them. It was Quincy's last great project, the last thing he and his master made together, and the very thing that his master had hoped would change everything for their town, maybe even turn it into a city. Dreaming of a bright future for everyone who called their growing town home. Now that shared dream was dead, just like his master, just like their town. The least he could do now was make sure they never found it, and they never would. After all, what better way to hide something than under someone's nose? Easy there, it worth the frustration.
Oh, delightful! The one without honor makes his voice heard. So, did you shave the beard off yet? After all, a dwarf without honor can't have a beard. Can't have betrayers and backstabbers being confused with good and proper dwarves.
Jack could already imagine the dwarf turning a few shades of red at that comment, or at least hanging his head in shame, especially since he couldn't deny it. The local dwarf clans and the principality were originally allies and trading partners of the town. Many elves and dwarves even came to his and his master's workshop to either buy magic items or have their weapons and armor repaired. Yet here they were, conquerors and betrayers, all because they found out what he and his master were working on. They attacked the town, cornered its people, killed all of them outright, all to make sure there were no witnesses. Luckily, Jack and his master had burned all their research materials, a nice little act of spite. The dwarf was silent after Jack's remark, either too angry or too ashamed to respond. Didn't matter to Jack either way, so long as his words stung. Jack just sighed before a predatory smile crept on his face. As his master always said, may the gods welcome his soul in paradise, there is a solution and a tool for every problem. Once sure the two were no longer interested in his cell, Jack choked down the food and drink and used the metal tray to start scraping once more. It had taken him over a month, though tonight would be the last night. Taking a deep breath, Jack blew the stone dust off the ground and out of the glyph lines. It took him close to an hour to get all the stone dust out of the magic circle. All over the floor, alchemy and arcane circles and ley lines had been shallowly carved into the stone. In his time enchanting magic items, Jack had made a fair number of circles. But this was by far the most elaborate and complex glyph he had ever made, and it was filled with terrible purpose. Never before had Jack thought he would make something like this, though, much like inspiration, imagination, curiosity, necessity of the moment, and yes, some boredom, were the seeds of invention. Rage, spite, depression, desperation, and grief were also sources, and those sources tended to result in a far more malicious product. And that was exactly what Jack wanted. By the time Jack finished the last of the lines, using the edge of his tray as an improvised carving tool, he double-checked everything to make sure it was just right. Once he was sure there wasn't a single mistake, he moved to sit right in the center and activated it. The lines and runes lit up, as if glowing water was steadily filling them, ready to release their terrible power. As the circle that encompassed the entire floor filled with mana, Jack laced his hands together just under his ribcage, right where he had hidden his master's final creation, and his own last great work. It had been a painful experience trying to swallow the damned thing, yet it worked. The betrayers hadn't thought to cut people open to try and find it. If Jack had any regrets, it was that he would not live to see it work. It had taken longer than Jack expected for the magic circle to fill. Then again, this was much bigger than the ones he was used to working with. Which was fine. Jack had waited this long, what was a little longer. Besides, he had built something into the circle specifically to ensure no one could stop it, and that part of the circle was already charged. As the circle charged and filled with enough mana to power an enchantment to cover the town, the slot to the door opened.
What are you doing?
The elf screamed and tried to throw the door open as the dwarven compatriot cursed and struggled with the keys.
The circle must have taken longer to charge than I thought.
Jack thought to himself.
Well, I could use the show before the end.
By the time the iron slab swung open, it was too late. Jack didn't care. The dungeon core was now glowing so bright that the light showed the bones of his ribs as dark bands through his skin. Jack just smiled at them as they looked on in horror.
Are you mad? Stop!
The elf screamed in terror as he tried to dive for Jack. In mid-dive, a shimmering half-dome shined in the air as the elf crumpled against it. "What are you doing, lad?" the dwarf yelled, unsure of what to do as the elf held their broken nose.
Oh, this? Yeah, so I decided between the beatings, the interrogations, the killing of this town, that I'm gonna kill everyone here.
Jack said with a smile as he enjoyed their horrified shock.
You filthy ingrate!
The elf yelled as he tried casting a spell to break the barrier, only for nothing to happen.
You would use such evil power?
"You can't do this! Think of the people! Would you kill so many?" the dwarf shouted, beating his fists on the barrier. Jack just shrugged as he enjoyed the show, waiting for the last of the circle to absorb the last of the power it needed.
Being a bit hypocritical, aren't we? Didn't you guys come out here and start killing pretty much everyone in sight? Sure, didn't seem all that bothered about death when it wasn't your lives on the line.
Jack chuckled darkly. Neither of them could say anything. They knew they had killed over 3,000 men, women, and children, farmers, shopkeepers, craftsmen, helpless against the heavily armed and armored dwarves or the magical bombardment of the elves. We had orders, the dwarf said lamely.
Who are you to judge us?
The elf shrieked while still uselessly attacking the barrier.
Your race is a speck of time! Short-lived and greedy for power you don't deserve.
Again, Jack just shrugged. He didn't really care, since they were all going to die anyway. "What do you want?" the dwarf shouted desperately, while the other jailers could be heard rushing down the hall. What'll it take to get you to stop this madness?" At this, Jack couldn't help but let out a predatory smile that made the elf and dwarf grow pale at the sheer hate they saw in his eyes. The glowing in his body made more of his bones visible, as they could see his ribs in detail and his skull appearing through his glowing flesh.
That right there is what I want.
Jack said as he saw the circle was almost done. It needed only a few seconds more. He might as well have what fun he could. If he was going to die, then he should at least give one of those needless villain monologues, like from one of those storybooks he used to make fun of with his late master.
I was taught by a good man to be a good man. But you and your fucking asshole countrymen came in here walking in like you're some untouchable hot shit. You killed everyone I gave a damn about or cared about me. Destroyed everything I wanted along with my dream. Everyone that lived in this town only wanted to grow and better themselves. I took great pride in my efforts to help build this town, and hell, let's be honest, I enjoyed fixing and enhancing the equipment of the dwarf clans while trading magic items and tools with the elves.
Jack took a second to remember the time with a hint of whimsy, seeing there were only a few seconds more left.
We traded with you in good faith. and welcomed you as friends. But the moment you found out we were about to actually better ourselves, you cut down everyone in this town. The terrors of the wilds may be monsters, but you are so much worse.
Jack said. A hateful snarl took over his visage as his flesh grew brighter and his bones were now clear to see, highlighted by dark outlining.
I'd like to remind you of what I said at the start of this rant. I was taught by a good man to be a good man.
Jack said as he saw that the circles were now filled. It was time to end it.
The effect of this circle will have a 2.5-mile radius. So, no point trying to run. As for what I want, is to see the hope in your eyes die. Kinda like how you killed mine. Like this.
Jack activated the magic circle, and that was when he saw it. He saw all their hope shrivel and die. The town that was once home to thousands of humans and a few other races erupted with raw, unfiltered mana. The shockwave covered and suffused everything within a 2.5-mile radius from the center of the eruption. All the animals, bugs, plants, dwarves, and elves were completely saturated with this rogue mana. Every living thing the mana touched felt as if it was ready to burst into flames, while some were already showing signs of mana poisoning. Then, all the mana that had been rushing out as fast as possible to latch onto any and every living thing stopped. It hung in the air for a second, before it all came rushing back to the center of the source. It ripped out the life energy of every living thing it touched. Everything living withered in moments, as the Chaos Shard hungrily devoured it all. Once every last drop of life energy and mana was sucked into the stone, with all that power now in the shard, it came to life. Jack watched as the elf and dwarf withered before his eyes, as he felt all the magic energies getting sucked through him and into the core. As he watched his former jailers turn into hollow, shriveled husks, he then felt his own life energy getting pulled away. He watched as his arms became thinner and his muscles weakened, as he seemed to age over a century in seconds. He didn't feel pain, only weaker by the second. But he did it. He got his revenge, and denied them the prize they murdered a town for. With what little strength he had left, Jack lay down on the stone floor and closed his eyes. His breathing became more labored before it stopped as he took his last breath. As Jack felt himself fade from this world, a message passed before his mind.